Hey everyone, race week 70.3 Ironman St. George is here. In this video, I want to talk about the race week nutrition that I'm going to be doing in the days leading up to the race. So right now, pre-race, immediately pre-race, and then the race itself, as well as I also want to talk about some mental tips and mental strategy and preparation for those of you who are freaked out about your races, because I am, and I've got some things that hopefully will help you out. This is going to be a low edit, fast talking video because I am exhausted. So first off, this is not going to be like a high level triathlon nutrition video. This is just going to be my race week, things that I'm doing. I am not a fat adapted athlete. I am a carb adapted athlete. There is a full video about nutrition coming, but this is just things that I am doing that will hopefully help you out. So the main fuel source that a carb adapted athlete uses is carbohydrate in the stored form of glycogen. Glycogen is stored in your liver and then primarily in your muscles. So by carb loading, the 2 to 3 days leading up to a race, what you're doing is you're giving your body the ability to store as much glycogen as possible for you to use during your race. You're going to be hearing terms like low glycemic index, like slow burning carbs, and high GI foods, fast burning simple sugars. Right now, for me, generally speaking, I do still prefer to carb load using low GI foods. So things like long grain rice, some whole wheats, some vegetables, things like that, versus faster, simple sugars like candies and juice and like honey, that sort of thing. Those are higher GI foods. But the overarching theme is get carbs into your body. A good rule of thumb that I like to do is 6 to 9 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight per day, the 2 to 3 days leading up to a race. We're not trying to increase the total amount of calories a massive amount. And the way we do that is by shifting the diet to be super carb heavy. So it's not that you're increasing everything that you're eating to reach those goals. It's that you're moving your diet to something like 80 or 90% carb based. That's what I'm doing. It's really important to learn how to mentally distinguish a full stomach versus fully fueled, or conversely, an empty stomach versus fully fueled. I have done Ironman Chattanooga and 2 double marathons starting the day with an empty stomach. And we're going to talk more about that here in a second, but that is a concept that I think almost freaks people out a little bit. Like, you don't have food on board? And the answer is I have a ton of stored carbohydrate on board, but food that is sitting in your stomach is not food that you're using. So what are some foods that I like to use for carb loading? There's a ton of options. The full spread is pretty much available to you if it's a carb. So the things that have worked well for me in the past, sweet potatoes, fruit juice is a great way to get some additional carbs really easily without eating a lot of volume. Fruit in general, oats, honey, bread is a good one, long grain rice. Almost any snack that you can think of typically has a lot of carbs. Wheat thins are a good one. I like to drink a lot of fruit smoothies, especially like the naked juices, because you can get them at grocery stores super easily, which is great for if you're traveling and you're in an area that you don't know very well. Another one that I encourage people to look into is Tart cherry juice, specifically Tart cherry juice or Tart cherries. There is good data that eating or drinking Tart cherry juice in the days leading up to an event decreases essentially how much it hurts when you're working out. So I want to talk a little bit about race morning. A lot of the credit that I'm going to be talking about right here goes to Hammer Nutrition. There's a great link in the description of this video. I encourage anyone who's interested in sports nutrition to check it out. Hammer has done a ton of research on this. The really key takeaways are that by eating 90 to 120 minutes, or really anything under 3 hours from the start of the event, a lot of people are impairing their performance. And the reason is we want to have optimal glycogen. We want to have an optimal hormonal environment to encourage our body to properly use that glycogen. And 3, we want to delay the glycogen depletion as long as possible. On that third note, glycogen is not the only fuel source that you use. Every athlete, regardless of whether you're fat adapted or not, you use some fat. But depending on the hormonal environment of your blood, you're going to use more or less fat. So the point that they're making, and again, credit to them, but they have 3 key points. When you're properly carb loaded, hunger is not a proper indication of energy availability, which I already talked about. 2, there's not enough time in the race morning for you to get fuel into your body and convert it to glycogen under 3 hours. And three, and this is the really big one, taking in large amounts of sugar causes your body to promote a hormone environment that prioritizes glucose and glycogen faster than normal. So essentially, as your blood sugar goes up, your body uses more glycogen and less fat. So you're using those limited glycogen stores. Most athletes only have roughly 2,000 calories of glycogen on board. You're using those limited glycogen stores more quickly. Or put another way, you're not using as much fat. So the total amount of energy that you're expending on the race course is the same, right? But now you're using more glycogen and less fat, so your total glycogen depletes more quickly. Don't try this for the first time at St. George, but I have done this at 2 double marathons. I did this for Ironman Chattanooga. I've started the race with an empty stomach but fully fueled, and it's a weird feeling, but it works great. This is a perfect transition to move into race nutrition itself. So you can eat right before the start of the race. So what I like to do is take a gel with me and I'll tuck it into my wetsuit. And actually at St. George, it's going to be awesome because we're going to have to wear masks right up until we get in the water. So I can eat my gel minutes before getting in the water and then throw my mask and my gel packet away right on shore. No littering. It's perfect. On the bike, I'm going to try to keep this really short, but I have 3 stored areas of water and nutrition on my bike. I have an X-Lab Torpedo liquid storage between my aero bars, so between my arms. And then behind my saddle, I have the ability to carry 2 water bottles. So I'm using liquid nutrition. Specifically, I'm using Tailwind caffeinated at a ratio of about 330 calories per hour. I've tested that in training. It works well for me. The caffeinated in particular, caffeinated has been shown in a lot of studies to increase performance. So here's how it works. Start of the race, I have between my aero bars, 1 hour's worth of liquid at 330 calories of Tailwind. Behind my saddle in my right, I have another water bottle, which is triple concentrated with Tailwind. So this bottle is containing 900, almost 1,000 calories of Tailwind. And that bottle is technically good for another 3 hours. So I won't use the full thing, but I've got it. And then back left, I have pure water. And the way that I do this is back left, as I approach aid stations and as this middle one empties, what I do is I take one bottle out of the rear and I squirt a third of that bottle into the X-Lab Torpedo. So now I have another 330 calories of Tailwind concentrated, and then I add in water from the aid stations, and it works really well for me. Liquid nutrition pros and cons. Pros, it's really easy to eat. It's easy to track how much you're eating. It's very easy on the body to digest, and it hits really quickly. You don't have to wait for it to physically digest. Like I don't ever have to do with a bar sitting in my stomach. The big con of liquid nutrition, especially at a course like St. George where it's super, super hot, is if you don't have additional pure water, you've tied your hydration to your nutrition. So if you're sweating a ton, if you're super hot and you need more liquid, well, you're going to be forced to drink more calories. And that could be a recipe for a really bad situation. Like nobody can take in 700 calories an hour. On the run, of course, the advice is always nothing new on race day, but interestingly for me, I have learned I have a pretty iron stomach when it comes to liquid nutrition of any kind. So Martin Gels is on course. I'm going to use that. Soda, I can drink soda anytime when I'm running, and water. So yes, nothing new on race day, but also I have learned for me, pretty much any liquid nutrition does not count as new. So, and then post race, specifically, I like to use a 3 or 4 to 1 carb to protein recovery drink. The one that I really like to use is Tailwind Recovery Powder. They're not the only ones that make a recovery powder, but just the reason I like them is because it's a powder that I mix in water, and it's just very convenient. So the delivery method works well for me. It's so much better than like Ironman branded pizza, right? Like get a proper recovery drink, whether it's Tailwind or something else, just have something that you can deal with quickly as soon as possible right after your race. I know that wasn't a super deep dive into nutrition at large. That video is coming, but I just wanted to get some out and let you know where my mind is at and why I'm doing the things I'm doing. Let's talk about race week mental prep, because I will freely admit that, like, man, I'm so stressed right now. Like this is me stressed. So One of the things that I have found in the past that works really well for me is mental visualization and planning for things to go wrong and running through what it's going to look like when things go wrong. Almost anything you can think of is probably going to happen to at least one of those people, right? And certain things are going to happen to a lot of those people. So putting in that mental prep and thinking like, okay, what can go wrong on the swim, bike, and run? And then what's it going to look like for me to be able to handle that? And the biggest thing that I've felt and I've experienced and I would convey to you is getting yourself in a mindset where when something goes wrong, it's not a freak out moment, but rather what it is it's almost like a shift of mindset, or like you're changing procedures. Like you're like, okay, I'm no longer on my bike. Now I'm dealing with this and I'm shifting into this other mode. One of the things that I've found on the swim, for instance, is let's say you swallow a wave, or something goes wrong, your goggles fall off, whatever, like you need to stop swimming. At any point, I can reflexively do a hard stroke with either my left or right arm and get myself onto my back and back float. It takes me 1 second. It's a reflex. And if anything goes wrong, I can back float and I can chill and I can handle the situation. When it comes to the bike, things like flats, or maybe your chain falls off, or something else goes wrong on your bike. So whatever those things are that really intimidate you with your bike, if you're intimidated by those things now, get on Park Tools website, get on just the internet at large and learn how to fix those things. You don't need to know how to fix every single thing, but getting those 2 or 3 common things out of the way and practice them such that if it happens to you on race day, you're not panicked, you're not freaking out. You're just assessing the situation, thinking about it logically and handling it. And the other thing that I would really say, speaking about thinking about things logically, is you're going to go into your race with a plan. And it's so easy in the heat of the moment on race day to start changing things, or forget those wattage targets, or forget the pace I've ran all the time in training. I can do this. Hold that. Like, don't do it right away. Like, make sure that you're really, really confident that you can do that game day adjustment. And for a lot of people, it's worth taking a step back and really asking yourself, like, can I do it? Or is it just something that I'm feeling in the heat of the moment? It's not that you can't ever make a game day adjustment, but really smartly think about it. And then the other side of that is if something goes wrong and you're not sure why, put some logical thought into it. I remember during Ironman Chattanooga, I was in a deep, dark nutritional hole. I was super emotional. I was almost crying at one point. I was really confused. This was like mile 90 on the bike, and I wasn't sure what was going on. But even though I didn't know why I was feeling that way, logically, I thought to myself, like, okay, I'm not feeling good. I feel very much not like my normal self. I'm 90 miles into a hot bike ride. This is probably nutritional. And even though I wasn't sure, I was like, well, I'm just going to start taking in a bunch of nutrition. And I did, and I felt so much better. Consciously think about things wherever you're at. If you start to panic, count to 5, take those seconds and just relax and think about it. Any amount of time you spend not freaking out is always going to be worth it in the grand scheme of things. And most importantly, it's going to make your race better, because if you're not having fun, like, what are we doing, right? So yeah, that's it. That's this video. I hope you found that useful. I know it was like a super fast talking, super high level overview. If you see me at St. George, feel free to say, hey, if you were racing St. George, I hope your race goes freaking awesome. If you're not racing, if you're just training out there, I hope that is also freaking awesome for you. And I hope you're having a blast. I am really appreciative to get to go race. And even though I'm not going to be fast, I'm just so excited to get to be out and enjoy it. That's really what it's all about. If you want to follow along during my race, I don't have a bib number for you yet because they're assigned at check-in. Justin Does Triathlon on Instagram. That is probably going to be the most up-to-date way to follow along my race. But again, I hope you all have a great weekend. I will see you on the other side.